All right, man, peace. So, brothers, I'm already pretty much on record as stating that, in my view, LeBron James' greatest contribution to the NBA sphere and to the people who watch the NBA is that through his decision to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2010, he showed many of the other players that they should be confident in being mobile, that you should put your faith in things that are of more importance than whatever team you were drafted by and a so-called fan base. People who are not going to give a shit if you get traded away for a better player anyway. That's what I always give LeBron James credit for implementing in the mindset of the modern NBA player. And when I say quote-unquote modern, I'm talking about from around 2010, which is when he made the quote-unquote decision, up to now. Of course, when I say modern NBA, that's going from 1979. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm speaking about from 2010 to now. The players of this era have adapted and adopted the mindset and the precedent that LeBron was able to set in 2010. And that's a very good thing. But by no means was LeBron James the originator of the concept of freeing yourself from the shackles of a team, an organization, or a franchise. That goes all the way back to Wilt Chamberlain, to Oscar Robertson, to Rick Barry, to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, so on and so forth. A lot of people do not understand that. Oscar Robertson is probably the most pivotal player in the history of the NBA when it comes to establishing the concept of free agency. That's how he was able to join the Milwaukee Bucks in the first place, I believe in 1970s when he joined that team. And they won the championship in his first year there, playing alongside Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Wilt Chamberlain requested a trade to the LA Lakers in the late 1960s. Kareem requested a trade to the Lakers in the mid-1970s. This is nothing new. But what we'll notice over the course of the conversation between Chris Little White Lie Broussard and LaShannon Sharp James is that once again, they're falling into the snare of giving LeBron James too much credit, more credit than he deserves. But the reason why I wanted to make a video based on this segment is because we're going to utilize this video for posterity. If we should come across this situation that the Lakers be, say, 16-21 in early January, let's just see how Chris Broussard and Shannon Sharp will try to speak on LeBron James should that situation transpire. Because as we're going to see over the course of this debate, they're going to claim that LeBron James is not just a great player, but that he's also a player coach, a player GM, a player CEO, and damn near gets involved in the decisions that an owner would get involved in. Now keep in mind that both Shannon Sharp and Chris Broussard have stated incessantly that LeBron James is just a player, that he has nothing to do with the personnel decisions that the team makes that he happens to play for. He's just a player. That's what they claim. But they normally make those claims when LeBron James' teams are struggling. But when it looks like there's going to be a lot of light at the end of the tunnel for LeBron and his team, what Shannon Sharp and Chris Broussard and other toxic LeBron fans do is give LeBron an exorbitant amount of credit. So let's see how much they flip-flop over the course of this season. But once again, let's pay very close attention to what they say in this conversation. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Sorry, still hanging with us this morning. Chris, we're talking about legacy now. What's a more powerful statement for LeBron's legacy? Winning with Kawhi or winning without him?
Well, basketball-wise, I think it'd obviously be winning without him.
Of course, absolutely. If LeBron, let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, had Kawhi Leonard signed with the Lakers, there certainly would have been a conversation at the end of this season should the Lakers have won the championship, and hopefully for their sake they would have with all that top-shelf talent. There certainly would have been the conversation of whose team it was, especially if LeBron would not have won the MVP of the finals. And believe you me, he would have made sure that he won the MVP in the finals had Kawhi Leonard signed there.
But I don't think winning with or without him, what's LeBron's legacy right now?
LeBron's legacy is being the most woke superstar in the history of the NBA, the modern history of the NBA. And when I say woke, I mean in quotes. I don't mean legitimately woke. I mean woke in quotes. He's woke or quote-unquote conscious for the TV cameras, but not in real life. There's nothing woke about LeBron James in real life. He's a hedonist and a narcissist. And I'm sure that a lot of his fans will not like me saying that, but it's just the truth. You can tell by his track record, the things that he says as opposed to what he does. People will say, what are you talking about? What about the school in Akron? That school is one of the most quintessential displays of narcissism that I can remember in recent memory from an athlete. You talk about a vanity play. For LeBron James to put his name on a public school and act as if he invested his money in that venture to build it from the foundation upward when it actually is going to be subsidized by taxpayer money. And the only contribution that he made to the building of the school was $2 million, not from his own pocket, but from his foundation, meaning there were donors who submitted money to his foundation, and he used that to make the quote-unquote donation himself and put his own name on it, and thereafter his name was put on the school. That's a big joke. And all that is a Ponzi scheme to make himself look more magnanimous than he actually is. But if we're just going to talk about on the basketball floor, what LeBron should be remembered for is being the person who instilled in the other players that you should always be looking for the better play for yourself, the better place for yourself as well, the better place for your family, whatever is best for you, because you are a monetary asset and you should view yourself that way. That's the best contribution that he's made. When it comes to all the other fake woke stuff and the fake social consciousness bullshit, you can have a nice day with that. And by the way, I'm still waiting on them to find that person who spray painted the word nigger on LeBron's on the front gate of LeBron's house in Brentwood. Isn't it amazing they still have not found that guy yet? 2 years later, ain't that a bitch?
You got him top 10. I think you're in the minority. You might be the only one. Most people got him at least top 5.
Speak for yourself. Anyone who knows basketball knows that LeBron James is somewhere in between 6 and 10. Maybe 5 if you push it and if you want to put him above Larry Bird. Of course, you have the Kobe fans out there who claim that Kobe is better than LeBron. I'm not interested in that conversation right now. As I've always stated, my top 10, number 1 is Jordan, number 2 is Kareem, number 3 is Bill Russell. I can understand if you want to flip-flop number 2 or number 3, and you can certainly make an argument that either one of those guys could be number 1. Number 4 is Magic Johnson, and I also believe that you can make a case for Magic possibly being the greatest NBA player of all time. You'd lose that case, but you could make it. I have him at number 4. And let me also say this. For those of you brothers out there who may have never seen Magic Johnson play, there's a highlight reel of Magic on YouTube that's about 16 minutes long, about 15 and a half to 16 minutes long on YouTube. I think if you search Magic Johnson NBA mixtape, it'll come up. Let me say this. If you watch that highlight reel of Magic Johnson, you will start to question whether or not he might actually be the greatest player ever. Just from an offensive perspective, he's probably the most impactful player in the history of the NBA when it comes to empowering everyone on the basketball floor. What truly sets Jordan and Kareem and Bill Russell above Magic, in my view, is the impact that they had on the defensive end. But if we're just talking offense, Magic is certainly in the argument for the greatest player ever. And I mean, he would be right there with Jordan and Kareem and those guys. But when you factor in defense, then that's when they go above him. That's when they vault him. Number 5 on my list is Larry Bird. Certain people might say, why would you put Larry Bird above LeBron James? If you look at Larry Bird's career, he basically accomplished what LeBron James has accomplished in half the time. He won the same amount of championships. He only won one less MVP award in the regular season, except he won his 3 MVP awards consecutively. LeBron has won 4 regular season MVP awards. I do think that Larry Bird was a better overall player than LeBron James. A lot of people are not going to like that. It's okay. But I think that Larry Bird was a better leader. He was a better passer. He was a better rebounder. He was a better shooter from 3-point range, from mid-range. He was a better free throw shooter. He had a better left hand. There's not much that LeBron James was better at than Larry Bird. Of course, he was a far greater athlete. And I would say that he was a far greater individual defender in his youth. But Larry Bird was no slouch defensively. And when it comes to basketball IQ, Larry Bird arguably has the highest basketball IQ of any NBA player ever. Now, I would say that LeBron may have the highest basketball IQ as an individual. He's up there because he can run his own system.
You got him top 2. You got him as the GOAT. A lot of millennials have him as the GOAT.
You do not have him as the GOAT.
No.
Thank you.
And I don't think, honestly, I don't think there's anything he's going to.
I don't even think that Shannon Sharpe has LeBron James as the GOAT. I just think that that's his shtick on TV. But as I was saying, I have Larry Bird at 5. Number 6, at one time I had LeBron. But after his performance in the 2018 finals and his performance in his first year with the Lakers, I have to drop him down a bit. I've always said that from 6 to 10 is fluid on my list, just like from 11 to 15 is fluid. It just has the same names. But from 6 to 10, I have Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon. Once again, from 6 to 10, it's very fluid. I could see Hakeem at 6. I could see Shaq at 6. I could see Wilt Chamberlain at 6. I could see LeBron at 6, but I have to knock him down because of his performance last year. People might say, what are you talking about? How could you have Hakeem that high? Hakeem Olajuwon is by far the most skilled big man to ever play in the NBA. It's really not even that close. Hakeem Olajuwon, and I just watched one of his videos recently again, one of the games from the 1995 playoffs against the Spurs. The way that he toyed with David Robinson is one of the greatest defensive centers of all time, one of the greatest all-around centers of all time. It was embarrassing what Hakeem did to that man. Wilt Chamberlain has to be in there because he is without a doubt the greatest natural athlete to ever participate in the NBA. And I'm not even quite sure if it's that close. Wilt Chamberlain is a greater natural athlete and physical specimen than LeBron James ever was. You're talking about a guy 7'1", 7'2", with a 45, 50-inch vertical leap. I mean, he was incredible. Has most of the individual scoring records. If he were playing today, would he have put up the same numbers? No, but he would have been a phenomenon nonetheless. Shaquille O'Neal was basically the modern era version of Wilt Chamberlain. He was the most dominant player in the modern NBA from 1992 all the way to about 2004, 2005. So he has to be up there. Won 4 championships, was able to go to the finals with 3 separate teams, lead them to the finals on 3 separate franchises. And I'm talking about relatively dormant franchises when he arrived there. Orlando, the Lakers. Now, the Lakers, of course, we know they have a great history of winning, but they had been dormant pretty much until Shaq got there. They were on the upswing the year before he got there, but he took them to the level of being a 60-win team and eventually to the finals where they won. And then, of course, you also have the great Tim Duncan, who's without a doubt the greatest power forward of all time. And he's probably right there with Michael Jordan as being one of the few players, and Hakeem Olajuwon as being one of the few players who you would name as arguably a top 5 or 6 greatest offensive and defensive player in the history of the league. Tim Duncan could have averaged 30 points a game if he wanted to, but he was so team-oriented that he didn't have to. This guy won an MVP award and a Defensive Player of the Year award. He didn't do it in the same season, but just the fact that he did both shows you how impactful he was. So that's my top 10.
Realistically, that's going to change my mind. Like, and most people's minds that look at Michael Jordan as a basketball player, he cannot pass Michael Jordan to me.
I agree, but that's the reason why LeBron James is trying to promote wokeness, Chris Broussard, or Chris Little White Lie. That's why he's trying to do that, because he knows that's the only way that he can vault Michael Jordan. As I've stated in the past, he's the basketball version of Benny Blanco from the Bronx. He approaches his idol with all that fake love, when in reality he wants to replace him. That's all he is, man.
Failures that Jordan never had. If he wins with Kawhi, he will have had 3 pretty much stacked teams when he won. I don't think he can win over Michael Jordan, be over Michael Jordan. But to me, LeBron's legacy, and he and his group, they look at this too. It's way beyond basketball. And I'm not just talking.
Of course, he and his group look at that because he's a politician. And that's what a lot of LeBron's fans don't understand. He does things strategically. He does things for effect, not for reality. And I mentioned this in other videos. You know, there's a reason why Nike is trying to associate him or correlate him with Muhammad Ali. Because what they're trying to do with LeBron James is take the Michael Jordan energy and combine it with the Muhammad Ali energy to make LeBron bigger than them both. LeBron, he funded that Muhammad Ali, that YouTube documentary that they put on HBO, because that's all it was a YouTube documentary. If you know anything about Ali, you probably saw 98% of that footage on YouTube already. But LeBron was acting like he was breaking back by producing that Muhammad Ali documentary, when it seemed like, at least to me, that he's probably the only person who didn't know most of that shit about Ali. You ever come across those people who find out that somebody was great way after everybody else already knew it, and all of a sudden they just want to talk about that person day and night? That's how LeBron comes off. He's trying to associate himself more with Ali, even though he knows nothing about what Ali actually was about, because Ali actually involved himself with groups that were counterculture at the time. LeBron is not counterculture at all. So this notion that he's going to be able to transcend Jordan based on what he does off the basketball court, that's pure political speech. That's not real. Now, if LeBron James were to get on TV and say, mainstream society is trying to push and promote homosexuality, lesbianism, transgenderism, especially in the black community, and it's to destroy our people, then I would have to give him credit. I'd have to give him all the due in the world, because he would actually be saying something that's running counter to what the mainstream media is trying to promote. He was so controversial because he was so counterculture. There's nothing counterculture about LeBron James. He's a corporate Negro who's trying to masquerade as a revolutionary.
School in Akron. I'm not just talking about his businesses. I'm not just talking.
LeBron James does not have a school in Akron. There's a public school in Akron that has his name on it. That's what that is.
Setting up his friends to become power brokers and business moguls themselves.
Yeah, the 4 guys in his clique that he is hooked up to open up avenues for themselves and himself, because they're business partners. It's not like LeBron just he created a raffle or a lottery and says, you know what, I'm going to give all this money to just random people. What he's doing is a business venture, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with that. As a businessman, you make investments in people who are close to you, who you hope will do something with it, and then you make a return. That's a great thing. But people act like he's Santa Claus or something like that, and he's not. Now, Shaquille O'Neal, that's somebody who actually goes out there and mingles with people and gives away stuff. Once again, show me the footage of LeBron James going to a random hood without security and doing this and doing that. And I have no problem with him making sure that his life is secure, because he's someone who's viewed as an asset. Somebody might try to rob him or do something like that. I have no problem with him separating himself. But then don't come back and try to act like you're a man of the people, because, bro, you're not a man of the people. Knock it off.
I'm talking about within the sport. His legacy is like he has broadened the horizons of players and what they think. Like, he has shown players how to take your destiny into your own hands.
I'm not quite sure if I agree with that, at least not to the extent that you're talking about. As I've already stated, I think that what LeBron James has shown is that you should not feel like you have to be loyal to a fan base. That's the most important thing. But if we're going to talk about players taking their destiny into their own hands, that goes back to the 60s. Will Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson, later on Kareem. Then in the late 80s, and I'm sure that Charles Barkley will deny this, but he tried to force a trade from the 76ers to the Lakers himself. That didn't work. So a couple of years later, he forced a trade from the Sixers to the Phoenix Suns. So this stuff has been going on for a very long time. Shaquille O'Neal left the Orlando Magic, a team that had just lost in the Eastern Conference Finals the year before, and moved out west to the Lakers.
Durant and Kyrie are spending all season talking about playing together. I don't think they do that if LeBron doesn't set the tone with going to Miami, what he did in Cleveland, and now what he's doing here.
I'm not quite sure about that. I think that Kyrie Irving has always shown that he's pretty much his own person and that he's going to do what he wants. Kyrie actually tried to leave after they won the first championship in 2016. Do I believe that he met up with KD at the 2016 Olympics and attempted to conspire with him? That would make no sense, because as we already know, he wanted to leave after 2016, and KD was not going to sit aside and wait and hope for Kyrie's trade demand to be successful for him to sign with whatever team Kyrie got traded to back in 2016. I believe that KD already pretty much had his mind made up that he was going to sign with the Golden State Warriors. He just wanted them to woo him, and that's what occurred.
Put together himself essentially 3 super teams. Miami, it was a group of them doing it, but Cleveland, go get Kevin Love in that trade. Now the Lakers, get me Anthony Davis. Let's get Kawhi Leonard. We have had player coaches in NBA history: Lenny Wilkins, Bill Russell, so on and so forth. LeBron is like a player GM, but a player CEO.
Hey, brothers, you hear that? Not only did Chris Little White Lie Broussard say it, but in the background you can hear LaShannon Sharp James say that as well. That LeBron is not only like a player coach, but also like a player GM / player CEO. So let's keep that in mind for over the course of this season, because we already know that Chris Little White Lie and LaShannon have denied that LeBron is anything other than a basic player on the team when his team is not playing well. But whenever it looks like things are going to shine bright for LeBron, they want to give him all the credit. And they do not grasp how that affects the prospects of LeBron being able to play alongside other stars. Because LeBron cannot even put on enough of an act to lure other stars to play with him, because not only is he see-through, but his fans are toxic. At least his fans on television are very toxic.
Like, I don't think in American history, team sports, there's been a player that has been such a boss within his sport as what LeBron James is.
Not even close.
Now, and I think the only
So that's interesting. LeBron James is such a boss in his sport. So who exactly is he bossing? Because according to you guys, he has no sway over the GMs that he plays for. Supposedly, Rob Pelinka was not listening to LeBron a few weeks ago. Now, keep in mind, this segment was filmed before Kawhi Leonard declared that he was going to sign with the Clippers. So the Laker fans, or the LeBron James fanboys on TV, they were really feeling themselves at that moment, because supposedly, due to the fact that the scuttlebutt was that Kawhi was going to sign with the Lakers, that supposedly disproved the notion that players or prominent players did not want to play with LeBron. So they were really feeling themselves at this point in time last week, just before July 4th. So that's why they, you see them talking with so much swag and speaking about how LeBron is a player CEO and a player GM, so on and so forth. That's how they operate.
in American history that you can compare it to is Floyd Mayweather, who promoting his own fights.
Right.
So he makes double what his opponent makes in a fight.
Well, here's the thing. LeBron does not make double what other great players in the NBA make. You cannot compare LeBron James to Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather has no major endorsements whatsoever. Floyd Mayweather, other than Al Heyman, is pretty much self-made. Al Heyman, of course, being his business Bengali, his guide in the business world / real estate world. And, of course, being a shot caller. Al Heyman gave Floyd the confidence, at least from an out-of-the-ring perspective, to believe in himself and view himself as the A-side and always demand way more than his opponent, because Al Heyman had an understanding of how much the networks were making on the back end and how much the promoters were stealing from Floyd. So that's why so many fighters love Al Heyman, because Al Heyman understands that if you run your business right, there's going to be more than enough money for you to make. You don't have to steal from your fighters. And if you give your fighters the amount of money that they're supposed to have, they're going to be happy and they're going to make a better product for you, and you're going to make more money anyway. When you decide to engage in shady business practices, you're going to end up losing at the very end or near the very end. And your name is going to be sullied. So it makes no sense. But just to get back to the point, do not compare LeBron James to Floyd Mayweather. LeBron James is a corporate shill. He's pretty much a pawn of Nike.
Sometimes it gets ugly when you do that. So like with LeBron, it gets ugly when he's orchestrating. Give me this guy. I need this. I want this. With Floyd, he picked his fights. I'm going to wait before I fight Pacquiao. I want to...
Yes, Floyd Mayweather said, I'm going to wait before I fight Pacquiao. And Pacquiao is going to age, and I'm not going to age. I already did a video about this, but this shit cracks me up when they talk about how Mayweather waited for different guys. Floyd Mayweather is not Nosferatu. He's not Count Dracula. He ages just like everybody else ages. And if Manny Pacquiao had decided to just take the damn blood test in 2009, the fight would have happened in 2009. If he would have accepted the terms in 2012, then, of course, they would have had to fight in 2012. But Manny Pacquiao turned it down again and ended up getting sparked by Marquez somewhere down the line during that time period. Around 2014, 2015, Manny got desperate. That's why the fight happened. So that fight did not take so long to make because of Mayweather. It took so long to make because of Pacquiao. All Pacquiao had to do was accept the full random blood test. He claimed he was scared of needles. But these guys on TV, and I mentioned this in a video that I did pertaining to a Speak for Yourself segment. A lot of so-called black men on television, they have cognitive dissonance. Like they block certain things out when it comes to facts, especially pertaining to self-made black men. That's one of the last phases that the so-called black man has to learn to transcend. That being that you have to take into account all the facts, not just narratives that, will help you to continue to glamorize and glorify the business aspect, the same business paradigm that tends to rob fighters, especially black fighters. Floyd Mayweather was able to eviscerate that paradigm and create his own paradigm where the fighter gets most of the money. And it's still very difficult for cats on TV to grasp that. Like, they still want to cast Pacquiao as the good guy, even though Pacquiao was the pawn. And even he himself has come to realize this. That's why he himself has signed with Al Heyman. They don't take these things into account.
You know, he picked everything, but business-wise, money-wise, at the end of the day, Floyd Mayweather's legacy is not as the greatest boxer ever.
That's your opinion.
But it is as the greatest boxing businessman, as the, like, if you were advising somebody, your son wanted to be a fighter, you would tell him, model Floyd Mayweather. Not going to be punch drunk, undefeated, still a great fighter, made more money than anybody else, and did it his way. LeBron James.
Not the way he behaved out of the ring.
Right. Totally agree. Totally, no question. I'm glad you said that. But LeBron James, I think his legacy, you're going to look back and say, man, he did it his way. Like,
No, we're going to look back at LeBron James and we're going to say he did it Nike's way. Because that's what he did. LeBron is a far bigger show for Nike than Michael Jordan ever was. Michael Jordan built that shoe company from the ground up and formed his own imprint. LeBron is 17 years into the NBA and he still does not even have his own imprint. Like, are you serious? They still have to make your sneakers with the swoosh on it? But you're supposed to be this trendsetter and this guy who's breaking barriers. Come on, man. Knock it off. Nike signed him to $1 billion slave contract. They said, we're signing LeBron James to $1 billion lifetime contract. All that translated to was, we're going to make a show of it that LeBron James is our indentured servant for life. That's all that means. You're supposed to be making way more than $1 billion over the course of your lifetime if you're LeBron James working with Nike.
No, this weekend, owners and GMs aren't the only ones that can build teams. Now, some people might not like that legacy, but that is a huge legacy. I think if Kawhi goes there, Kawhi has been viewed as the opposite of LeBron, right? Doesn't, get in drama, doesn't talk a lot, just go and play. And if he signs on with LeBron, that will really show the respect that these players have for what he's done as a boss, so to speak.
So now that Kawhi Leonard has not signed there, we know what these players think about LeBron James as a boss, so to speak.
I think that's his legacy. I don't think his legacy will be as the greater than Michael Jordan.
I agree with every point you made off the court. Every point. Your turn.
No, your turn.
No, go.
Because I told you this, Skip Bayless. I keep telling you. The old guard.
I keep telling you. I told you they love my baby. Like I love him. Shannon Sharpe, boy. Whew. This brother is 51 years old. I've never seen a person that old obsess over another man. And keep in mind, Shannon Sharpe is not just like some regular dude. He was a world-class athlete himself. The way that he obsesses over LeBron James. If LeBron were able to turn on him, Shannon would become so frustrated. It would be like a chick that has a crush on a guy and the guy tells her that he's not feeling her. That's going to become your number one opponent in life. Like if I'm LeBron James, I would have to be concerned about Shannon Sharpe eventually becoming disenchanted and then suddenly trying to use his platform on Fox Sports 1 as a bully pulpit because he is so emotional. Shannon Sharpe is really in touch with his feminine side. I'll leave it at that.
Like LeBron because he has power they never enjoyed. As great as Michael was, as great as Magic,
they don't like him because he has more power than them?
Because he could do things that they couldn't do.
No, the reason why many of the older players might not necessarily favor LeBron James is because they believe that he took a shortcut to championships. That's why Shannon Sharpe. They feel like he did not go through enough travail. Now, whether you agree with that or not is up to you. I personally have never had an issue with LeBron James leaving Cleveland. I think that he needed to leave Cleveland so that he could actually learn how to play basketball. And that's part of the problem with these players who come straight out of high school. That's why I'm against players coming straight out of high school because they're never as good as they could be. As great as Kobe Bryant was, as great as LeBron James is and was, they're not the players that they would have been had they went to Duke or North Carolina or Michigan State or Kansas for 2 or 3 years. They would have been far greater players in the NBA. It would have taken them less time to win a championship had they gone to college. Now, of course, people are going to say, what are you talking about? Kobe won a chip in his 4th season. Yeah, he won a chip in his 4th season, acting as the second in command to a team that was clearly led by Shaq. And Kobe did not really understand how to play championship basketball until what? His 12th season in the NBA? 2007, 2008 was the first year that Kobe was, able to get to the finals, leading his own team to the finals, and he lost because he still did not understand how to conquer a team playing team basketball on the level of the Boston Celtics in 08. So he had to take that ass whooping that year and then come back the next year and finally win it against Orlando. But his career was not complete until he finally beat the Boston Celtics, because who had Kobe beaten in the finals before that? Orlando, the Nets, Philly, and Indiana. I mean, come on. That team, the Lakers in the 2000s, they had the weakest finals competition of any dynastic team in the history of the sport. So that's why 2010 was so important for Kobe. He had to win those finals in 2010. But just getting back to the point, that's why the older players have an issue with LeBron, because they feel like in their mind that he took a shortcut to success. But nobody's jealous of LeBron James. Michael Jordan sits back and his money makes money. Ain't nobody thinking about no damn LeBron.
Like, I want this guy, I want that guy. Now, granted, he took it. He took it. It's one.
Yes, he takes it, and he also takes those L's in the finals. These people, they talk about LeBron like he's 6-2 in the finals, or 7-1, or 6-3. The dude is 3-6 in the finals. And this is why, once again, this is why other great players do not willingly go to play alongside LeBron James, because this is what comes along with it. Delusional fanboys on television, people like Shannon Sharpe and Nick Wright and Colin Cowherd, and these players, they like these sports shows. They like watching sports networks because they're athletes. So they want to be able to sit back and enjoy the content without having to hear their own name on TV every day get lambasted by fanboys who are masquerading as evaluators.
Have a hammer. It's another thing to have the hammer and use it. Mm-hmm. He has the hammer and he's using it. Okay. And you see other players, Kevin. So
LeBron James has the hammer and he's using it. I got you. He's using it to do what? The players are getting paid more money than ever. Is that really because of LeBron James, or is it because the league is growing exponentially, particularly since the 1992 Olympics, where the Dream Team went abroad and showed the world the beauty of basketball? And the league has been growing exponentially since then. The ratings actually were taking a downturn, a dip, in LeBron James' first few seasons in the league. And that Miami venture helped reinvigorate the league. And then, of course, Golden State and the rivalry between LeBron and Golden State, that also assisted the opening up of the offenses. But there's a partnership that exists, a tacit partnership that exists between LeBron James and the super socialist, super woke Marxist Commissioner Adam Silver. There's no doubt in my mind that they are working together, hand in glove. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. I'll help you amplify your brand through the fake consciousness, the fake woke shit. You'll wear t-shirts every time a Negro gets shot, and in return, you help promote the WNBA. You help promote homosexuality, lesbianism, transgenderism. And that's what LeBron does. You help promote feminism. Adam Silver tells LeBron and Chris Paul and those guys, I'm gonna allow you to make more money into your 30s. But in return, you have to say things like, we need more female coaches in the NBA. Even though there are scores of black men who played in the NBA who want to coach and can't, because they're not going to get hired due to the fact that supposedly Adam Silver believes that little Susie should be coaching on the sideline somewhere in the league. But none of these dudes will say anything about it because they can't, because they're cowards. They're all corporate whores. That's what I try to tell you, brothers. LeBron James is not some strong black man fighting for his people. He's a corporate whore, and he's a super liberal pawn. You're never going to hear LeBron James say, why would they want to hire female coaches when you have black men who've been in the league, who sweated, cried, and bled for the league to build it up, and they can't get a job? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar cannot get a job on the sideline in the NBA. Patrick Ewing had to go coach in college. He can't get a job in the NBA. Mark Jackson still can't get a job. But I'm supposed to believe that Becky Hammon deserves a head coaching job in the NBA? And if I understand this, I would hope that LeBron James understands this, but he says nothing about it. Why is that?
Kevin Durant didn't have a production company until LeBron James got one. Kevin Durant didn't have a boardroom until LeBron James got what? The undefeated. You see what's happening to Skip Bayless? Everybody. Steph Curry got a production company. Steph Curry. Skip Bayless. You see?
Yep. This is
Yeah, all that sounds cute, but I mean, at the end of the day, brother, no disrespect. Many of these basketball players have appeared in movies since the 1970s. They just didn't have the money to have a production company. Even Michael Jordan didn't have the money to have a production company back in the mid 90s. He didn't break the bank until 1996. Keep in mind, he filmed Space Jam in the summer of 95. You had Dr. J, who was in The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh in the late 70s. You have a lot of players who appeared in movies all throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s, but they didn't have the money to create production companies. Now, because the players are being paid so exorbitantly, they can afford those little vanity ventures, and good for them. But it's not like, oh, LeBron James, he's revolutionizing how everyone thinks about everything. It's just nonsense. Do players want to be able to make films and things like that to influence the people? Sure, but most of these guys are pawns anyway. Most of their films are going to be fluff pieces to promote liberalism.
Yeah.
No, I got more. He's like, get to the basketball, right? There's nothing, and I said this earlier, Skip, I don't believe there's anything to do, because I believe people's mind is made up on what and who they think LeBron James is.
I don't think that people's minds are made up. I just think that they're analyzing the data and what they've seen, and they've already come to a decision. Shannon Sharp, you've been on Fox Sports 1 since 2016, and you've been saying that LeBron James is the best player in the history of the NBA, most of it being shtick, because every once in a while you'll break character and you'll say it's actually Michael Jordan, but you've been saying that LeBron is the best player ever since 2016. He hasn't won shit since 2016. Every season you've claimed that if LeBron wins the finals, he's finally going to pass Jordan. He keeps losing. And you keep allowing the same barrier to be there. You don't move the marker at all, despite the fact that he keeps losing. So it's very clear that people understand that most of what you say is for entertainment purposes only is pure shtick. So don't expect to be taken seriously, just like LeBron is not going to be taken seriously. And eventually, and I've said this in the past, I do believe that eventually LeBron is going to get exposed, a lot like Lance Armstrong, for being an actor and a huckster.
Simple.
okay.
So, with that being said, he can probably convince more millennials.
I think that many so-called millennials understand that Michael Jordan's the best. I believe that, there's a lot of people on the internet who just don't know anything, and they'll claim LeBron because he's the best player of the generation that they grew up in. But it doesn't take much to grasp accomplishments as well as expertise on the basketball floor. I mean, LeBron, he can't get the title just based on longevity. There was a time period, maybe his third year in Miami, where he really had mastered the game of basketball overall, offense and defense, mid-range, long-range, post-up defense. When he went to Cleveland, he regressed back to the LeBron that he was before he went to Miami offensively, and defensively, he just fell off the map. Right now, what LeBron is basically is just a mid-range jump shooter who likes to drive the lane if he has an opening, dunk on people, and draw fouls. He has no post-up game whatsoever, and he plays no defense. So what has he done in the last 3 years to add on to his legacy to make him out to be better than Michael Jordan, other than Stat Pat?
He is not the GOAT. And this is not aimed at you, but at you. There is no way Michael Jordan would have ever even considered chasing 2 of the top 5 other players to join forces with to go win a championship. He didn't think that way.
I will say this. There's a sentiment that Michael Jordan already had another one of the top 5 best players in Scottie Pippen. But what Michael Jordan's saving grace is, or one of his saving graces, is that because he went to college and played under Dean Smith, he actually wanted to utilize a player with the skill set of a Scottie Pippen in a real system. He didn't just tell Scottie, okay, you stand there in the corner, and when I'm finished dribbling and surveying the floor and rubbing my offhand on my jersey, I'll pass you the ball if I feel like passing you the ball. That's what a lot of these guys are missing, is the fact that LeBron James cannot play in a real offense. He was forced to kind of sort of play in a real offense when he was in Miami, because Pat Riley was not going to tolerate all his bullshit. And that's why he had his most success there. In Cleveland and now in LA, they just allowed him to play LeBron basketball. And that's not going to win against a team that plays great team basketball. So the real question this year is going to be, will the Lakers encounter a team that plays great enough team basketball to knock them off? We'll see. They look really good on paper, but Just because you have a lot of name recognition does not mean you're going to win. LeBron James is heading into his 17th season. Anthony Davis is in his prime age-wise, but he's always been fragile. DeMarcus Cousins is 30 pounds overweight, coming off of an Achilles rupture. And the last time we saw him, he couldn't jump over a sheet of loose leaf. Rajon Rondo, old as hell, and he's always going to have some type of blow-up in the middle of the season. We still don't know what we're going to get from Kyle Kuzma, other than the fact that he's dating a Kardashian, which is trouble. And, I mean, the rest of the roster is okay. You got Danny Green. You don't know what Danny Green is going to be. LeBron James might end up cursing him out in the middle of the season. So, I mean, they look like they have an okay team, but would I necessarily say they're definitely going to beat the Denver Nuggets or the Utah Jazz or the Houston Rockets? I have to see him out there on the floor first.
A solo act in his own mind. Did he have some help? Yes, he did.
A lot of
some
help.
But the point is, he never sought it. It was given to him because they made a trade on draft night for Scottie Pippen, who was the 5th overall pick out of Central Arkansas. And it was the greatest thing Jerry Krause ever did because he was a...
Well, it was one of the great things that Jerry Krause did. Jerry Krause was a great GM. He and Jordan did not get along because Jerry Krause was going to do what he wanted to do. And he was not going to listen to some Schwarzer with a bad temper and a hyper-competitive nature. He was not going to do that. His attitude was, you're a Schwarzer, you're a golem. We're here to use you. We have your keys. Shut the fuck up. That was Jerry Krause's attitude, and that's why Jordan was so disdainful towards him.
Pretty good player. I don't think Scottie Pippen was anywhere near what you think that he was. He was.
Well, the Scottie Pippen line, or the Scottie Pippen argument, is used by a lot of the people who try to offset Jordan's credentials or the things that Jordan was able to accomplish. They'll say things like, well, when Jordan retired, Scottie Pippen led the Bulls to 55 wins, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, what the obvious logical end is of an argument like that is that you think that Scottie Pippen is greater than Michael Jordan, right? If you're going to claim that the Bulls had no drop-off when Jordan left, what you're really saying is that Scottie Pippen was a greater player than Michael Jordan, because those same people will say that before Scottie Pippen got there, Michael Jordan got swept in the first round of the playoffs. But you'll notice if you ask them, so are you saying that Scottie's greater than Michael? They will say, oh, I didn't say that. So then what are you saying? You're not saying shit because deep down you know that you're not making any sense. You're just talking nonsense. Michael Jordan was the hub of that team. He was the engine of that squad. And the Bulls went all out in 1994 to try to prove that they didn't need Michael Jordan. And they came up short. If you had Jordan on that 94 team and they played as hard in the regular season as that team played, they would have won well over 70 games. They probably would have won 73, 74 games. Because they had the best players from the first three-peat and some of the best players from the second three-peat on the same team. If you would have added Jordan there, they definitely would have won the championship.
Top 10 or a top 5 player, okay? No, he was not. So the point is, it gets shameful that you keep trying to push GOAT on me because he's nothing but the phony GOAT. And we're just talking basketball. If you
Shannon knows that already. He's just trying to get in good with LeBron.
off court, you got me. He's light years ahead of Michael Jordan off the court.
You don't know that. All you're going by is your fake wokeness yourself, because you're a Caucasian Marxist. You have no idea if LeBron James is ahead of Michael Jordan off the court, because we'd have to check their books. I guarantee you, as they say, you know, real bad boys move in silence. If we were to check Michael Jordan's checkbook, he's probably made out more checks anonymously to people who needed it, especially so-called black people who really need it, than LeBron James, who works, you know, in a way to get all the credit for himself, even though Nike is probably paying for most of that shit that he gets credit for.
Mike did his with Nike.
He did well,
okay,
yeah, right.
He did it his way, that way. But all the social conscience, you got me and all that because...
You mean social bluster. Once again, the first three letters in activism are ACT.
It's been stellar in all of those regards. But we're just talking about basketball. It shocks me. It disillusions me that LeBron is still chasing two. He wants 2 stars. He used all of his clutch sports muscle to strong arm Anthony Davis out of New Orleans to get him to LA.
Because Anthony Davis wanted to be pimped by LeBron. Anthony Davis is not a leader. So he's happy to be up under LeBron.
And then on top of that, now he's chasing a guy who just won his second finals MVP. The guy you say is the best two-way player in basketball. That
Right, but did LeBron ever really want Kawhi Leonard? Or was that Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss chasing after Kawhi because they want to have someone to replace LeBron James? Once again, I'm not a believer in this notion that LeBron James is involved in all of these moves. I think that there are some moves that he's involved in because he can help. LeBron knows that Anthony Davis was a big fan of his when Anthony was young. So he knew, okay, that's a guy I can get. There are not that many guys in the league that, that are that big of a fan of LeBron to want to come play under him, because you don't play with LeBron, you play under LeBron. Kawhi is not a fan of LeBron's. So just the fact that there was even this flirtation between Kawhi and the Lakers tells me that this was a Rob Pelinka, Jeannie Buss thing, not a LeBron thing.
everybody calls the claw.
Yep.
Okay? So you're going to have both those guys. So you're telling me that you want to be the most prohibitive favorite in the history of basketball. If number 2 sides with them, the Vegas odds are going to go through the roof for the Lakers. There'll be never anything like it. So do you want a done deal? Do you want the biggest cakewalk championship ever won?
Yeah.
The easiest path to... Yeah, you do. Okay, well, that's LeBron.
That is
Of course he does. Because Shannon is a fan of LeBron. That's how LeBron is. LeBron wants to stack the deck. So do LeBron's fans. The fans of these various notable figures, whether they be athletes, celebrities, actors, etc., they tend to reflect the nature of the person that they're a fan of.
I agree. That's the difference. That's why I don't think he can pass Jordan. That's one reason.
My thing is, look.
Of course he can't pass Jordan. That concept of passing Jordan on the basketball floor is done. Especially if they get knocked out of the playoffs next year. That's going to be so embarrassing. Imagine if the Lakers go out in the second round, say to Denver or to Utah or the Rockets. That should be so hilarious. Oh, God forbid, Golden State. Imagine if the Lakers get knocked out by Golden State in like the second round of the playoffs. The playoffs in the Western Conference next year going to be lit as hell. From the first round onward, going to be lit.
I'm from the old school of thought. When I come home, I just want to sit down and eat. That's what your dad wanted, right? He wanted to come in, hey, how you doing? Sit down and eat. Well, LeBron James, all that.
Right. And
but that
my
just
dad was the boss, and LeBron
that
is the
just
boss.
goes to show you, Skip.
Once again, Chris Lil White Lie Broussard. You're saying that LeBron is the boss of everything. So should they be struggling in December, January, don't come back on the show talking about LeBron just a player. Because that's what you guys were saying all last season with the Lakers and the year before in LeBron's last year with Cleveland. Don't blame LeBron because he's just a player. That's what you claimed.
Of the level of respect that if you got a finals MVP is even contemplating joining a Pantheon great. Anthony Davis wanted out of New Orleans to go join a Pantheon great.
Because Anthony Davis is a fan of LeBron.
And to be even considered lets you know the respect, the clout, the cash shake.
He grew up a Laker fan. He wants to go home. Okay, so it's not like I gotta play with LeBron. I want to play for the Lakers.
Okay, but
right?
LeBron happens to be there.
Okay.
Now, we've heard a lot of talk. Oh, he don't want to play with LeBron. LeBron, who wants to play with LeBron?
Nobody. Shannon Sharp, I believe that you're the only one who wants to play with LeBron. And I don't think that it's basketball that you want to play, the way that you're going on about that man.
The drama queen. There's always something swirling around it. Well, I know 2 guys. I know one guy's already there, and the other guy is about to walk in the door.
Okay. Well, is that what LeBron wants? Because for me, it tarnishes his legacy. I don't even.
See, Skip Bayless, once again, he was the only person, at least on this show, other than Jason Whitlock, he was the only on-air entity or on-air persona who kind of realized that it wasn't making sense. The whole Kawhi Lakers thing wasn't making sense. But there was not enough empirical data to put your finger on it at that point. But I give Skip credit for questioning a lot of what was going on at that point. Due to the fact that Shannon Sharp and Chris Broussard are fanboys of LeBron, they didn't pick up on any of it.
More like, really? It's shameful.
No, it's not.
Jordan would never even think about
Well, he should think of
What about the stage of his career he's at? Now he'll be in his 17th year. And that's why, again, in keeping with, and supposedly LeBron is saying this, in keeping with, I keep hammering it home, he should be the table setter. That's what he should be. If he comes out, the best argument, and I'm with you, he can't pass Jordan. But the best argument for that would be, or another argument, if he comes out and plays the next 3 years like Magic, and to your point,
there's another false narrative that LeBron James can play point guard on the level of Magic Johnson. I would love to see him try it. I'd love to see LeBron James come out and attempt to distribute like Magic Johnson. I say this again. If you watch that 15.5-minute or 16-minute highlight reel of Magic Johnson, you'll quickly understand that Magic Johnson is the greatest passer in the history of the NBA, and there's not even a close second. There's not even a close second. LeBron James is nowhere near the passer Magic Johnson was, and he's a very good passer, LeBron James is. He's not as great as they make him out to be passing the basketball, but he's very good. But to compare him to Magic Johnson is not even close.
averages 22, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds or 7, and they're winning, and he's just setting the table, and Kawhi's getting his, and AD's getting his. Then you could try to argue, man, he became in his 17th year what another top 5 player was his entire career, Magic Johnson.
Okay.
Like,
I keep saying he's still the best passer in basketball. I can't find a better one.
Well, you might be
Okay.
you rephrase
All right.
that. He's still the best player in
He is
basketball.
not the
That-
Well, LeBron is up there when it comes to today's best passers. He's right there with Chris Paul and probably Rajon Rondo as well. But he's up there.
that you should say forget or pass him. Player.
When Michael Jordan was in his age 34 year, he made first team all defense. Your guy doesn't even think about playing
Yeah,
defense
but think about
anymore.
34. Look with Michael.
Okay.
Michael didn't even play this many years.
Okay, but
He didn't.
still.
And he had taken a year off. He took a year and a half off. Skip, he played. Remember now, he broke.
Right, but Shannon Sharp, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? The last time that we saw LeBron James attempt to play defense, Kyle Kuzma had to push him in the back to go guard his man. That's what he had to do. So let's stop acting like LeBron even tries to play defense. You keep trying to use the year excuse. What type of defense was Michael Jordan playing in his 2 seasons with the Wizards? He was still playing very good defense for his age. LeBron James has not even tried to play defense, I would say, since 2013. Since he lost the Defensive Player of the Year award to Marc Gasol. That's when he gave up.
Foot, played 18 games. He came back with 17 games in 95, Skip. That's 35 games in 2 seasons. And plus, he took a year and a half off. Stop playing, Skip.
He also won the scoring title at age 30.
Skip, he's a scorer. That's what
he
he
maximized those years, though. I mean, with the 6 titles.
But let me
Let's understand something, brothers, for a moment, because Chris Broussard, or Chris Little White Lie Broussard, he finally said something true for a change. He said that Michael Jordan, basically, he packed a lot into those years with the Bulls. If you were to look at Michael Jordan's career, you'll see that he played 15 official seasons in the NBA. Those last 2 years with the Wizards were basically a ritual that he had to partake in because he made a deal with David Stern that if he played with the Wizards for those 2 years and gave the league some time to transition from his era to the LeBron era, that Abe Pollin would sell the team to him. Of course, Abe Pollin reneged on the deal, but once again, that was a part of a ritual because Jordan went from the Red Lodge to the Blue Lodge. I've gone over the concept of fire and ice, or from red to blue, in other videos. He went from a bull, or Baal, or Asar, to the blue, the Wizards, to Kush, or to Tahuti, so on and so forth. That's a whole other video for another day. Once again, Abe Pollin reneged. Michael Jordan was furious. That's why eventually David Stern came back and handed over the keys to the Charlotte Bobcats and eventually the Charlotte Hornets to Michael Jordan, who at the time when Michael Jordan purchased the franchise, they were owned by the only black owner in the league, Bob Johnson. So there are Kabbalistic elements to the ownership practices in these major sports leagues, including the NBA. They try to act like the NBA owners are so progressive, quote unquote, so liberal. They're even worse than the NFL owners. They're even worse because they'll lie to you. At least the NFL owners will stab you in the chest. The NBA owners will invite you into their house, give you a steak, give you some wine, and then stab you in the back. That's how they operate. All right? All that super liberal nonsense is nothing but a cloak to get the money of so-called black people. But just to get back to the point, Jordan played 15 official seasons. The last 2 years with the Wizards, that was a ritual. He played 13 years with the Bulls. He won 6 championships in 13 years. But he missed the entire 93-94 season. He missed most of the 85-86 season. He missed most of the 94-95 season. So that means that he played 10 full seasons in the NBA and won 6 championships in those 10 full seasons. And also in those 10 full seasons, 9 times he was the scoring champion. So that's how great Michael Jordan was when it comes to what the accomplishments that he was able to pack into the years that he played. And I mean really played.
How is it that Michael still has shot the ball over 1,000 times more than LeBron James, and LeBron has played all these more games? How is that possible?
That's possible because of the type of shots that Michael Jordan took as opposed to the type of shot that LeBron James takes. Because most of LeBron James' shots tend to be in the paint, he scores a lot more of his points in a different way from Jordan, who was expected to score more mid-range and long range. Of course, Jordan could penetrate, but most of LeBron James' shots are taken in the paint. So that means that he scores a lot more of his points on free throws. That also means that he's getting a lot more layups. But let's understand that LeBron James' shooting percentage over the course of his career is about 50.4%, 50.5%. And that's with him being metric conscious or analytics conscious over the past, I would say, 6 or 7 years of his career. Michael Jordan ended his career shooting about 49.9% from the field, and that's counting the 2 years with the Wizards. When Michael Jordan retired from the Bulls in '98, his career averages were something like 31.5 points a game, 51.5 shooting percentage from the field. Like his proficiency numbers were off the charts. Shannon is trying to make Michael Jordan sound like he's Kobe Bryant, like he's a guy who just jacks up shots. And that's how he tricks the audience, or he thinks he's tricking somebody.
Like you just said, Jordan was a shooter.
Okay, then.
But he was efficient. It's not like he was a gunner.
Thank you, Chris Broussard. You're on a roll.
Efficient.
Is LeBron efficient?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, you don't say it like Jordan was just some gunner that scored a lot of
Thank you, sir.
gunner.
Well, he's never had the responsibility, the overall responsibility of not only scoring, but rebounding and assisting.
No, Shannon Sharp. That's just silly. That's like saying that Tony Gonzalez is a better player than you or a better tight end than you because he caught more passes than you. He played in a different system from you. So he's going to have different responsibilities from you. LeBron James can only play in one system. That's the LeBron James system. So he has to have the ball all the time in the center of the court. So he's going to make most of the decisions. That means that he's going to stockpile a lot of stats. Michael Jordan actually knew how to play in a real system. He played in various systems. The Stan Albeck system, the Doug Collins system, the Phil Jackson system. Phil Jackson's system did not require Michael Jordan to have the ball at the top of the key distributing the basketball. But Jordan showed near the latter part of the 1988-89 season that when he was asked to play point guard, not only could he get 10 assists, he could also get 10 rebounds, and average basically a triple-double the last month of the season. So when you try to go back and forth about numbers, also please understand that the pace of the game in Jordan's time period, especially in the 90s, was much slower. So 30 points per game in the 90s is like 38 points a game today because of the pace is faster today than it was in the 90s, by far.
That's why Scottie Pippen in the championship years, that's who led the team in assists. In the championship years for LeBron, the Heat and the Cavs, who led the team in assists?
He was born to do that.
That was his role, Shannon Sharp. His role was to distribute the basketball. Because on those teams, Dwayne Wade was viewed as the closer, and Kyrie Irving was viewed as the closer. So LeBron was the distributor. On Michael Jordan's teams, he was viewed as the closer. If they needed him to distribute, he could, but he was the closer.
I don't know what he was born to do.
Yeah.
I just know what he did.
Scottie Pippen averaged 6 assists in 1998.
Let that sneak in. So if he led the team in assists, so how many did Jordan have? If he didn't lead the team, and Scottie had 6 and led the team.
What Jordan led the team to was a championship.
6, right?
Who led the league in points scored? Michael Jordan.
But who?
For the
But
10th
here's the
time.
thing, Shannon. Jordan dominated the league in a way, basketball-wise, that LeBron hasn't.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being honest. Unlike what you were when you were reporting the Kawhi Leonard situation.
Just as simple. The way LeBron James locked down the Eastern Conference the past 8 years, Jordan locked down the entire NBA like that.
Oh, let me ask you a question.
The entire NBA?
Thank you, sir.
In the finals, how many times was Jordan the underdog?
Michael Jordan was never the underdog in the finals You know why that is, Shannon? Because he was the best player, so he had the highest expectations. When you try to make an argument like that, all you're proving is that you're probably the only person who views LeBron James as the unquestioned best player of his era. Because if he was viewed as the best player of his era on the best team, which is what he always tried to compile. Remember, the segment is about how your boy LeBron is the co-GM. So if he's a co-GM, and according to you, he's the best player ever, why were his teams not viewed as being the best team? Unless somebody was underperforming, either LeBron or his team over the course of the regular season. Michael Jordan's team never underperformed, so by the time they got to the finals, they were the favorites. That's how that works, Shannon Sharp.
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
I just explained it.
Because you the favorite team and you win.
He didn't have a super. Skip's right. Look, Scottie Pippen was a phenomenal defender. But you can watch him and say, if he had never linked up with Michael Jordan, he would not have become what he did.
And how do we know
From
what
the way he developed?
How do we know what Michael Jordan?
Because we watched him. We watched Michael Jordan.
Before he got
Scottie Pippen, how many points Scottie Pippen averaged?
This is a LeBron fan on LeBron fan crime right here. Shannon Sharp loves talking about what Scottie Pippen did for Michael Jordan's career, but he does not like to talk about what Dwayne Wade and Kyrie Irving have done for LeBron's career. Ain't that something? And we saw Kyrie Irving hit the biggest shot of the 2016 finals in Game 7. We've never seen, nor will we ever see, a highlight of Scottie Pippen hitting the biggest shot of any finals matchup for the Bulls. Ever will we see that, because Scottie was not a clutch player. He was a great all-around player. I'm sure that there'd be a lot of fans who come in the comments and get upset by me saying this. That's why I state that Scottie he's in the role player elite. He's in the role player top 10. He's one of the greatest role players ever. Cats will say, what are you talking about? He wasn't a role player. Yes, he was. Kevin McHale, great role player. Joe Dumars, great role player. James Worthy, great role player. Pivotal, great players on all-time great teams who would not have been good enough to lead a team to a championship on their own. But if you left them to their own devices, they could have got a team to the second round, maybe even the third round. But they would never have won a championship because they were not ethereal like a Magic Johnson, a Kareem, a Larry Bird, a Michael Jordan, or an Isaiah Thomas. They were just not. But once again, they try to use this Scottie Pippen argument to cause confusion, and it's just silliness.
First championship.
Before he got Scottie,
16 points.
Before he got Scottie, tell the people at home, in his first 3 playoffs before Scottie Pippen, what happened?
He lost. In his first 3 playoff series, he lost, Shannon Sharp, when he was 21, 22, 23. Good job. I'm glad you feel like that's scoring you some type of victory. Or I should say he was 22, 23, and 24.
He lost.
No. Don't say he lost. What happened?
So what happened to LeBron before he got with Wade? They lost.
Thank you, Chris Broussard. You're on a roll. You're on a roll, Chris Broussard.
I can say that about anybody.
Swept.
Somebody needs to correct Shannon Sharp because he keeps saying that Michael Jordan got swept his first 3 years. He did not get swept. As a matter of fact, in his very first playoff series, the Bulls were able to win a game against the Milwaukee Bucks. And the one game that they won, Jordan hit the game-winning shot. And you could view that on YouTube in the 1985 playoffs. So whoever Shannon Sharp's researcher is not doing a good job. But you know what? I suspect that Shannon may have gotten that from LeBron James himself because they DM one another. So it wouldn't shock me if LeBron is feeding Shannon Sharp a lot of fake history because LeBron is a meathead who tries to act like he's informed and he's really. But I just can't see Shannon Sharp having a researcher worth his salt that would have him continue to make the same mistake every day, claiming that Michael Jordan got swept in his first 3 years in the playoffs. I suspect that Shannon is getting that from LeBron James. And oh, by the way, LeBron James never even made the playoffs until Larry Hughes got there. But nobody ever says that. Nobody said LeBron James missed the playoffs his first 2 years in the NBA until he got Larry Hughes. You know why they won't say that? Because it sounds asinine. If you actually do your research, you'll know that the reason why the Bulls won their first playoff series in 1988 is because they won 50 games in the regular season. Because that's the year that Jordan won the MVP. He averaged 35 points a game, shot 54% from the field, had over 200 steals and 100 blocks. And he was also the defensive player of the year that year. They won 50 games and they were able to avoid the Pistons and the Celtics in the first round. They played Cleveland, won that series in 5 games, and Jordan averaged something like 44 points a game in those 5 games, and Scottie Pippen averaged something around 7 points a game. So Scottie was not the reason why the Bulls were finally able to win a playoff series.
Got swept by the Spurs. Swept.
With 4 Hall of Famers.
3.
4.
All right,
Who's the
thank
fourth?
you, gentlemen.
So if LeBron James gets swept in the finals, it's because the opposing team had 4 Hall of Famers, which they didn't. In 2007, the Spurs had 3 Hall of Famers, but nobody looked at them as being a big 3. Nobody thought of Ginobili, Parker, and Tim Duncan as a big 3. But that's how the LeBron James fanboys, that's another excuse for them. Whenever LeBron loses, because the opposing team was stacked. But supposedly he's the best player ever.
Duncan was a shell of himself.
Oh, he was a shell of himself.
Oh, you talking about, no, 07 he got swept. I'm talking about 2014.
He let him be scoring.
Duncan was a shell. No, he did not.
Rebound
2014.
Great stuff, gentlemen. As we go back to
Go
the
ahead, that big
history of basketball.
Scottie Pippen, Mount Rushmore.
We're going to keep Chris with us, and up next, what?
Good job, Chris Broussard, for putting that fool in his place. That's toxic LeBron entity that exploded on one another. It is what it is. So peace.